Welcome to episode 169 of Meeple to Meeple. Today is for anyone who's ever looked at their beautifully organized and crafted game shelf and thought, wow, I remember when I had time to play you. Because we're talking about how board gaming habits change when you become a parent. And let's just say it's a whole new game. At least I think it is. Returning to the show is our good friend Bo from Punchable Games on Instagram. We're diving into what happens when your game nights turn into game moments, when setup time matters more than ever before, and the biggest victory isn't winning, it's actually finishing a game before someone wakes up. But underneath all of that, there's something really special. Finding new ways to keep the hobby alive, even as life changes, in the biggest ways possible. Whether you're a new parent, a sleep deprived gamer, or just someone trying to figure out how to fit games into a busy family life, this conversation is full of laughs, honesty, and hopefully a lot of heart. So grab a cup of coffee, reheated probably for the third time, and let's talk about board games, parenthood, and redefining what it means to be a gamer. Bo, thanks for joining me again. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me, PJ. That was a lovely intro. I am great. A little tired, but that kind of comes with the territory these days.
So you had pitched the idea of talking about being a new parent and being a gamer and what that looks like because you have a child and you said is 14 months old now, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So that's
Yeah,
got to be fun.
it is. It is fun. And like I said, just because before we started recording, she just started walking, so nothing's safe anymore.
You
But yeah,
can't
like you
just
said,
strap her to your body and sit at the game table anymore.
she actually never wanted that. She just got angry at being confined. But yeah, like you said, 14 months ago, a little over a year ago, me and my wife's life just got turned upside down in the most beautiful possible way. We got our little daughter, and as lovely as she is, she's also a bit time consuming. And when she's sleeping, which is usually around 7:30 a night, each night we kind of plump down on the couch and say to
Right.
each other, and then we
Right.
and then it kind of takes a little to pull out a game. So the whole before I became a parent, I figured I would have a lot of time to play. She'd be sleeping a lot of the time, so have a lot of time to play all of my heavy games. It turns out I was very wrong. I believe when we talked last, I also said I was going to write a book and start a YouTube channel. None of those things happened, but we've kind of talked about it because I was in a bit of a crisis. I remember when she was, I don't know, 4 or 6 months old. We had set up a game of Luthier,
Yeah.
Luthier, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
The game about making instruments, a heavy game and a long game. And I had set it up, and we had
Yeah.
agreed to play it. And then, of course, our daughter wouldn't sleep, so we never got a chance to play it that night. And I kind of went into a bit of a spiral of, oh, my hobby is dead. I'll never play board games again. Luckily, I got out of that spiral,
Right.
and and we started playing games again. But we kind of had to put it into a system where we said, okay, Wednesday nights are game nights, and then we'll play
Sure.
what we have time for,
Yeah.
which is usually shorter games. And like you said, setup time really matters now
Right.
because we gotta tidy up before, after dinner and eat ourselves.
Yep. So how is setup time? I mean, it might be the most obvious, right? Like, at least for me. And of course, what's interesting about this conversation, I'm not a parent, so I have no idea what you're going through. How, when you and your wife are deciding on a game, is the very first thing that you consider is setup time?
Well, usually we actually had a conversation about this just before you and I started recording, that we kind of go for weekly game nights. It's an hour max of playtime. Root and Embelief that I have here behind me are
Yeah.
mostly out of the picture. But yeah, setup time, especially if it's a new game. And one of the things I figured would happen at some point is that I would stop buying new games. Nope, not happened. And I still buy games with this naive idea that at some point I'm going to have time to play an hour and a half of solo gaming, and that might happen at some point. I have Speakeasy coming in, not a short game as such.
No, it's good though. It's
It's
worthy. Ours came
yeah,
in and it
yeah.
is amazing.
And I figured sort of I also like the whole collecting side, having
Yeah.
beautiful boxes to look at. So
Yeah.
I figured that would fill that space in my collection. But to get
Hey,
back to your
so
question,
yeah, go ahead.
I think especially for new games, setup time and teaching time is very important. I have right here. I have Fromage,
Mhm.
which is quite a quick game actually,
It is.
surprisingly quick and very quick to teach as well. So we've played that quite a bit, and then we have when we have time, it's sort of a more
Yeah.
of a yeah
So when y'all are
advantage.
choosing a game and you said an hour, does that include setup, playtime, teardown, or
Yeah,
is it an
usually we
hour
say
playtime?
an hour of playtime. Yeah. So
Okay.
sort of game life like Lost Ruins of Arnak or Obsession to some extent. We can't go
Yeah.
an episode without mentioning Obsession.
Well, you can't. Hey. And I didn't have to mention it this time. Thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, again, it's like Fromage and these games that when they're two-player games, and luckily a lot of games, the playtime reduces drastically when you're playing two
That's
compared
true.
to three or four or five players. Yeah. So an hour of effective playtime, and then setup is usually setup and tech
So so how do
is
you
that.
I'm thinking about balancing your normal parental duties with you have to set up the game, right? So does one of you put her down while the other one sets the game up, or one of her does, bathes her while do y'all trade off like that? Is that how that works?
Yeah, exactly. And usually I'm the one setting up. So it's when Sophie, my wife, is putting the baby down. I usually set up the game, so we're ready to go when
Oh
she's out
yeah.
of the when once the baby's sleeping. And I would love to have a table where we could have a game set up and then play half a game tonight and then the other half tomorrow.
Right.
Dining room table is not nearly big enough for that, especially because you have to watch those little hands not grabbing a meeple and putting them and trying to eat them.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Because meeples are small.
It was so small. Exactly. And they look surprisingly lot like snacks.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Hey, what about
Yeah.
teardown? So you get through the hour-long game. Do you tear down the game and your wife
We
goes to
usually
do
help each
something,
other.
or yeah.
Yeah, we usually help each other do that and then head off to bed. And luckily, I'm one of those people that buy inserts for my games because that just really helps with my setup and teardown time, especially playing games like Arnak, which has a lot of little bits and bobs. When everything has a box, everything it goes quite quickly. And then I've tried to sort of gravitate towards games that are easier to set up and tear down. Uh,
Yeah. So how often and how many turns? So I guess how often do you fall asleep or find yourself falling asleep at the game table? And if you do fall asleep at the game table, how many turns before you're like,
I'm not
has it
sure if
happened?
actually not at a physical game table. I have fallen asleep at board game arena on my phone before
Sure.
falling asleep. Not at a physical game table. It has happened though that I've fallen asleep on the couch before setting up the game.
Oh well, yeah, that
So
makes sense.
yeah, yeah. I figure it's gonna take a while to put the baby down. I could just lie here for 5 minutes and then all of a
And then you
sudden
don't.
I'm asleep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Luckily, once we decide to get a game to the table, we're awake for most of the time anyway.
Okay. All right. So what's the toughest part about um trying to overcome all of the challenge of being a new parent? Like, what do you find most difficult in terms of getting games to the table, in terms of being a gamer?
I think the acceptance that the heavy games and the longer games that I really love and really want to play just isn't now for now. And I think sort of hitting that balance between having something that's light without being too light.
Mm,
Like I like having my brain fried even when I'm tired by a good board game. So I think balancing out that uh hitting that balance between light without being you don't want to get stuck playing Monopoly or something. And then I think accepting also that's kind of the name of the game,
Right.
pun intended.
Right.
These days, that there'll come a time when we'll have time to play these long games again, but now is not the time. And then accepting that even though we said we were going to play tonight, someone might throw a wrench in that plan. So sort of coming to terms, and I've done a bit of work on that by myself to sort of come to terms with the fact that the way that I'm a board gamer now is significantly different from what I was 2 years ago. There's this whole, I'm sure you noticed the whole I'm a board gamer thing on
Yep.
Instagram.
Yep.
I mean, it just goes to show that there's a lot of different ways to be a board gamer, but I've kind of I'm kind of trying to find my own way now.
Sure.
There was a time before when I just took in all the games I could, review copies, bought new games.
Right.
I'm trying, with emphasis on trying, to dial down on that now. It is hard because we are in a hobby that has so much good stuff coming out all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Uh, one of the other things I've noticed recently, speaking of trends, there's this, I don't want to call it a trend, but I guess it is a trend of gamers are being more critical of their collection. And rather than buying every new thing, there's a lot of, I'm culling these games or I'm going to sell it, and they post like, I really enjoy, although I don't do this, but I really enjoy when someone takes, like, say, a Cal-X Cube, anyone behind me, 4 or 5 games, and says, which one would you sell or which one would you cull from your collection? Right. And then everyone just chimes in. And it's great because there's some really interesting conversation around that. But I think it's interesting that people are looking critically at their collection and
Yeah,
saying, do I really need this game? And I think it's a valid question. So,
definitely. And I think it's also a sort of reckoning that's happening in the industry. We've had this October. I've had my Instagram account for 5 years,
oh,
and there's no doubt that there's a sort of consumerism
no, sure.
discussion to be had in our hobby because, like you said,
Yeah.
I need all the games. I'm trying these days to sort of, when I think of buying a new game, I try to think, will I actually get to play this? And a second thing is, does this game do something that no other game in my collection does? There are games that I own just for the sake of having them. I have a game, this weird zombie game called Last Night on Earth. It's not weird as such. It's just that the rules are
Right.
bonkers.
It's good, though. It's a good game.
It's very good, but
Yeah.
we spend a lot of time discussing the rules because they're so ambiguous. The cards are always, written in a way that you can discuss it so it
Yeah.
turns out to your favor.
Absolutely.
But it's a lot of fun, and it's one of the games that got me and my regular gaming group into the hobby. And I'll never get rid of it because I have so many memories attached to it.
Sure.
But I try to sort of look at games that I haven't played in a while and think, is this realistic that I'll get to play it, or is there something else in my collection that does the same
Yeah.
thing? I recently had the discussion with myself over A Feast for Odin, a lovely game, but a heavy game, and a heavy game that takes quite a while to set up. Uh,
Quite a while. Yes.
Coming back to our point from before, and I sort of looked at it, and I went into Sophie and said, do you remember when we played this last?" And I looked in my BG stats, and I think it was a year and a half ago. And it's a lovely game, but it's not a game that I'll play, and it's not a game that I'll play over anything else because it takes so long to set up.
Right.
So I ended up calling that one. I don't know if that makes me any less of a board gamer.
So I would suggest, if you're looking for an alternative to Feast for Odin, the Fields of Arle is great. And it's because it's 2-player. So, I mean, there is an expansion that makes it 3-player, but because it's just you and your wife, a little bit less setup time than Feast for Odin, but it's still, I mean, it's Yui, so it's the same. You get nothing's going to be surprising, and it's kind of the same game, although the setting's slightly different. But
You
so
still have to
if you
feed your people.
decided, yes, if you decided you really want to play Feast for Odin again, and you're looking for something that might work within your schedule, Fields of Arle, it's pretty
Yeah,
worthy.
I'll try and I'll
It's a good alternative. Hey, has there ever been a time when you and your wife chose a game, and you set it up, and either you are like, I don't feel it tonight, and you just pack it up, or she comes out and she's like, oh, that's a pretty game, but I don't feel like it. Has that happened to you?
It happens from time to time, and it can happen if it took too long to put the babies down, or if it's it's been a rough day. We've had a couple of sort of uh, cold incidents where everything just takes a little longer, and the mood is not really there. And then we sort of look at each other and go, "Not tonight," and then we go watch something on the TV instead. And that's sort of come back to the point that I had before, that you have to accept that that's going to happen, because yeah, we agreed we were going to play something tonight, but it took an hour and a half to put the baby down. Now the time's so late that we have to go to bed in a half an hour anyway.
Yeah.
But I think also one of my points actually with this, there's, I believe, and I know I'm taking in the whole hobby into this argument, but it also seems like there's a lot of sort of gamers who started out years ago who are now in couples and now are becoming parents. So I think also this whole dual edition of things, two-player editions of things, Seven Wonders and the Lord of the Rings one, Splendor. The fact that we're seeing all these two-player versions of things, maybe uh, a realization also from the companies that this is a market that they should get into. Sky Team, I heard you mention that on an
Oh yeah.
earlier
Yeah.
episode.
And it's the Sky Team is the first and only two-player exclusive game to win the Spiel des Jahres award.
Yeah,
Yeah, a year ago, 2 years ago, but
it
I
was
can't
just,
remember when, but it wasn't long ago. I mean, it was within the past 2 years, but it's the only
yeah,
one that has, which hopefully lends itself to two player games out there.
it was. I think it
There
was a
are
Spiel release 2 years ago. Yeah,
Yeah, there are so many two-player exclusive games now, right? Like there was a brief moment, where I prided myself on if there was a two-player game, I didn't care how good it was. I wanted it in the collect. Like that, I was happy to collect, right? There's like three of them that are on our. So we have our local game store has their used game sale coming up next week. And we've got 26 titles that we've culled from our collection and we're going to be selling. And a couple of them are two-player only because they just don't hit the table.
no,
It's just,
there's only so
yeah,
many
it's
times.
right. And I don't have
Yeah,
any children. There's only so much time in the day to play all the games.
exactly. Yeah, and you said in the beginning that you're not a parent, but this, I think this comes to us all. At some point, you just don't have the time or the energy to play 5 hours of hegemony that day.
Right. Right. Although 5 hours of hegemony is a great time.
I
Like
would
that's a
imagine, and I've heard that it is.
it is a really good game. It is worth sitting down and playing because it's great. Can I do it every week? No, but it's worthy.
And I've realized that it's okay also to have games in your collection that you only play once, twice a year. I have a couple of them. Lucia, like I said, I just bought the Gallerist for whatever reason. So now I
Because
have
it's
two Lacerda.
good.
It's good. It's really good. Yeah, I played it at a game day recently, and I was like, this is Lacerda, because I've only seen like Weather Machine and those really heavy
Oh,
ones.
okay.
So now I have the Gallerist and I have Speakeasy coming in. So the whole
Yeah.
buying heavy games is going great. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a really good point. That leads me to a question I've got here is I was wondering about your taste in games and wondering how much since becoming a parent, how much has your taste, putting aside time constraints and everything, but your taste and preferences, have they changed? And are you reaching for different types of experiences now than you were before becoming a parent?
Yeah. I think coming back a bit to my earlier point about this whole, does this do something that I don't have already in my collection? My taste, I don't know if my taste has changed, but my sort of approach to games has changed, I think. I'm going much more for theme also these days, because if I have to have a heavy game in my collection, it's got to be something that ties itself to its theme. I don't know if we talked about SETI the last time I was on.
I don't think so, because when you were on, we were talking about solo gaming and
Yeah, yeah,
exclusively
true. Yeah.
solo. So, which I love that we were last time you were here, we were talking about playing alone. Now we're talking about playing with a partner and putting a baby to bed.
Yeah. Next time maybe we'll talk about playing with kids.
There we go.
But SETI has I love it to bits, but it has the issue, at least for me, that I feel like I need to relearn the rules every time I play it. And for a game that relatively complex, it just takes too long then to get it to the table. Whereas, well, coming back to a Feast for Odin or Spirit Island, I haven't played Spirit Island in I think 2 years, and I can sit down tomorrow and play it because I remember the rules, because the rules tie into the theme. So I'm kind of going more for theme these days than I think I've done before. And then I'm kind of chasing after, I think, unique experiences, games that do something not necessarily brand new, but do something known in a new way. I think the card playing mechanism in Emberleaf up here is brilliant. The whole sliding of cards and playing cards to trigger abilities. We've seen all of it before, but it's sort of done in a new way, and I think that's lovely. And then I think, has my taste changed? I don't think so. I think I've gotten more. I think I've the main change has been the attention to playtime. That if a box says 90 minutes plus, it's not happening. I know you love Menefer, for instance,
Yeah.
and I would love to try it out, but I know that a game that takes 90 minutes to 2 hours at least to play is not going to get played a lot.
It's heavy on rules and mechanics because there's so many things, so many actions you can take, so many different paths to points that they're difficult to remember. To your point just a few minutes ago, it's like we take 30 minutes trying to relearn a game. That just happened to us very recently, a game that's very well beloved on this podcast. We're actually going to sell the game. That's Sulkin.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a weekend, it's probably about a month ago. My wife was out of town and my local game group came over and we were like, hey man, let's play Sulkin. We haven't played it this year, so let's play, it's been a year, let's play it. And the rule book, because of the rule book is just really challenging. And we needed to refresh ourselves. And it just was, well, we learned two things. One is that the rule book's poorly written compared to how well rule books are written now, back from when Sulkin came out. And then the second one is that our game group, which means me as well, we rely too heavily on my wife reading the rules and teaching us games. So without her,
Yeah.
we ended up, so the next weekend, my wife and I were sitting down. I was like, hey, let's play this again and let's sit through the rules. And then with her eye and my eye, it was like, this rule book is really problematic. And so because of that, it makes it even longer to relearn a game. And that's something we've been talking about amongst my friends here in town, is like having the problem of when you don't play a game for a long time and you have to relearn it, how long is that relearn time? We're not even talking about setup time. How long does it take to relearn the game? Because there's so many different rules and we're not, we're not computers. We're not, we can't just, I wish I could just like, pull my nose and download the rules and know how to put, or, wink my eye. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. So that's something
Have a
we've been
little
thinking
Rodney
about a lot.
Smith on your shoulder.
Man, Rodney, you there?
Yeah. Can you help me out here, buddy?
And so I can't even
And yeah,
imagine that with being a parent.
exactly. And if you have to look up too many rules during the game, just it takes the fun out of it. And then if you're tired to begin with, um I think bad rule books is one of the things that can really ruin a games experience for me. Have you ever played Scout, the Oink
Oh,
card game?
yes, yes.
That rule book makes it so much makes that game seem so much more complicated than it is,
Huh? Yes.
and it's not necessary at all. But yeah, bad rule books.
I think game designers have struggled with writing a rule book. And I think overall that publishers, editors, game designers have recognized how challenging it is. And I feel like they're putting more effort into organizing their thoughts, and there's more effort into the design of the rule book. It's no longer just play test my game and I'm going to tell you how it plays and see how you like it. And I think there's a lot more attention to that detail. And so
Definitely, yeah.
you like looking at Sulkin compared to a new game, it's like, or Speakeasy for that matter, heavy rules, lots of going on. It is a Lacerda game, as so that's to be expected. But the rule book, it's so clear. You got to get through it, but it's very clear, and it's just the way the rule book for Sulkin is organized. I think there's more attention to detail nowadays on the rule book
Definitely.
to try to limit that relearn time. Yeah.
I played a really good example of a really good rulebook is the one to for Ada's Dream. The
Yeah.
is
I've never played it, but it's on my list.
It is a fantastic game, and it is fantastic rulebook, and it has fantastic player aids. And player aids is another thing that really we should have more of, because it is a heavy game, and there's a lot going on, like you said, with
Yeah.
not Lacerda levels, but we're getting there. But everything makes sense, and the player aid has sort of just a structured do this, 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 and then if you have this, you can do this. So take when you look at how complex that game is, the teach in itself is really, really short. And it's one of the few heavy games that we can actually play on a weeknight if everything goes to plan, and we're not too tired. But it can actually be done in 90 minutes, as it says on the box.
Okay, that's pretty good. So before your daughter started walking, right? So, how often were you able to get a game to the table holding her? Like, was she ever allowed, like, or did she? I know you said she didn't like being held too close, but
Yeah,
were you ever successful, at least one of you holding the baby while playing a
yeah,
game?
we were, and other than that, we had this sort of chair that's sort of an incline. So
Sure.
when she was very young, she could sit in that and just actually look at us play. Now she just doesn't quite have the attention span. But I played
Right.
most of her solo game of Galileo Galilei with her sitting next to me.
Nice.
So it can be done to future parents out there. It can be done to
Yes.
play games even with small kids. And then when they're really small, it has the advantage that they're napping a lot. She's only sleeping 2.5 hours a day now,
Right.
so there's not too much time during the day. But we actually managed to get through a whole game of Unconscious Mind
Wow. Because that's a
when she
long
was
game too.
when she was younger. Yeah, and talk about a game where I have to relearn the rules every time. I know you had Luke on, and I'm sorry, Luke, but
Yeah.
that game is just it's a Christmas tree of mechanisms. I cannot get my head around it. It's a beautiful game, and it's a good game. There's too much in that game. There's too much going on for me.
Uh,
But we managed to play a whole game of, I think it took 2.5, 3 hours to play during one of her naps. And that's actually
great though.
a point in and of itself. I know in the States you don't have that much parental leave, at least not for the father.
No, not
We,
really.
we do in Denmark and we do in Europe. So I had 4 months, I think, off work where I figured I'm going to be playing a lot of games. I didn't, but I did manage to play some games because, like I said, if she's napping for 45 minutes, you can actually squeeze in a game of, I'll just have a look here. I don't know, Rolling Realms, for instance. One of the shorter
Sure.
solo
Yeah.
games, for instance. You can easily play that. And I actually did when she was very young and not started walking yet and didn't have an interest in what was going on at the dining room table. I'd set up a game during her first nap, and then during her second nap, I'd managed to play it. So that's a tip if you want to squeeze in some game time.
So you talk about solo gaming, so appropriate since the last time you were on. How much has your solo gaming changed? I know you said that you and your wife have carved out Wednesday night to game together. How much has your solo gaming changed since being a parent?
It's changed drastically. I'm playing less solo actually, but that's usually because I need to get some sleep at some point. I would love to do it more because when the girls are asleep, it could be lovely to just break out a solo game and sit and have fun with that. And that would be another way to get more games to the table, to be able to play them alone when everyone else is asleep. Did I hear you say that you enjoy playing Obsession solo now?
It's the only game I play solo. Yeah. Yeah. Great. And everyone knows I'm not a solo gamer.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm so happy I convinced you to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I don't get to it. It's been a while. There's been so many games. We played so many games. Obsession, like we haven't played Obsession yet this year. But of course, we're not even halfway through 2026. But I would like to say that as of today, we have played 58% of our collection this year.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
58%. And that's your collection is like 300
300. I
games.
think it's 312 right
So
now.
that's like
Yeah.
160 games so far. That's impressive.
Yeah. And that's just titles, right? Like we've played we've played games multiple times. We'll go back to them. We've gotten to the point, once we get to about 50%, it's when we start. My wife has printed off the names of all the titles that we have not yet played and then puts them on strips of paper, and we put them in a coffee tin. And then when we come down, she pulls a title and I pull a title, and then we choose from those two. And depending
That's
upon the
clever.
choices. So, for example, this morning we pulled Fromage and Galileo Galilei, two games you just mentioned that you've had some success at playing since being a parent. So we played both of them. We were like, we can totally get both of these games in while the laundry's going, and it's fun. Sometimes the games are like, we're not in the mood for, a 4-hour Lacerda experience, right? And we're like, okay, we can't play that. And yeah, so that's where we are now. So to this
Do you
point,
do you
we've just been playing.
draw again then if you're
So what we do is she'll draw a title, I'll draw a title. Let's say I draw a Lacerda, she draws something else, and we're like, we really don't feel like this long game, so we'll play the title she drew, and I'll put mine back, and we'll just play
okay?
that. Yeah,
Yeah, makes sense.
yeah. So, and we usually every other weekend on Saturdays, local group comes over. We're working through our Frosthaven campaign, and which is difficult when you're only playing it every other weekend and you're only playing one scenario. So, yeah, it's been a long time, but at least we're getting our money's worth out of it. And then afterwards, titles we have not played that don't play well at 2 and you need more players, well, we've got them, so we'll knock them out. So we knocked out quite a few this weekend, so that was pretty good.
That's
Again,
impressive.
though, I don't have the restrictions of putting a child to bed,
Of course not.
or
No.
having them wake up in the middle of the game session, being tired. I mean, I'm exhausted, but not parent level exhaustion. And I can't imagine what that's like. I appreciate you talking about this. This is really great. I'm enjoying this conversation because
Yeah, me too.
it's,
It changes your perspective in a lot of ways.
sure.
The old cliche goes,
Right.
but it not necessarily for the. I was going to say not necessarily for the worse, but it's in the perspective of gaming. It just goes. It just showed me actually what I already knew, that this hobby contains so many multitudes of games and ways to play and ways to look at a board game geek forum for faster setup times. And I mean, it's it's really impressive. And I was thinking of doing a geek list of sort of games that are new parent friendly,
I like
because
that.
I think maybe becoming a new parent and having all this time at home also could bring new people into the hobby.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, going back to your conversation with Luke about the whole gatekeeping thing, I think we should be gate openers rather than gatekeepers.
Man, you are not lying. That is well said. Well said. I was thinking about before recording this, I was like, man, I would love to at a game convention or somehow kind of orchestrate. I mean, I could technically we could do it this way through this medium. I could like maybe post a bonus episode in the future, but I'd love to have a panel of new parents who are gamers, right? I had mentioned to you there was a friend of ours who's a very new parent who's also been on the show before, and I was like, I gotta have the two of you on, But I'd love to have like because you've got different perspectives, right? It's like when you've only got one child that's 4 months old, or you've got one child at 14 months. What if you got two kids? What if you got three? What if you got five? Right? It's why when Susie came on last year and talked about bringing her kids at different ages to UKGE and what it's like to have to manage parenting duties and gaming enjoyment at a convention, and I really enjoyed that conversation as well. So there's a lot to be learned. Now I know that while you and I've been talking, you have come up with some tips, but I wanted to ask you what advice, if you had maybe a top three or a top five advice for someone who is a gamer and they're expecting a child or they're thinking about having a child and becoming a parent, what advice would you give them outside of the things we've talked about?
I would say the most important thing is planning, because when a child arrives, you can't plan for everything, but you can sort of you hit a rhythm at some point. Oh, she's sleeping at this point during the day. She usually goes to bed at this point at night. So you can mostly do a sort of plan. I would like to game in this space of time. And coming back to the fact that I say we play every Wednesday. It's more like every second or third Wednesday. But the fact that we have said Wednesday is game night means that we can always do it next week if it falls through this week. And that also means that the disappointment of not getting a game to the table on a night where we said we were going to play a game is less of a disappointment. So planning is key to keeping. And yeah, like I said earlier, accept the fact that your hobby is going to change. It's not necessarily the same as it's going to change forever, but you're going to have a period of time where you can't play the games that you used to, and accept that it's okay to both not play games all the time, but also to have games that maybe stay in your collection because you like them and you play them once a year. That's okay to have games that way. Uh, yeah. I think enjoy it. Enjoy both when you have time for playing games and enjoy when you don't. Because the first time my daughter picked a game off the shelf, not to play, of course, but because the box was pretty, my board game heart melted a little bit, and she went back to the same box every morning. When I picked her up from in the morning, and we would go into this room where I have all my board games, and she would sort of run her little fingers over the boxes, and then she would pick out a small one that she could carry, and then we'd walk into the kitchen, and just to be able to share. She doesn't know what's going on yet, but to be able to share a little bit of my hobby with her is just fantastic. So accepting that things are going to change is a big thing. It's a big part of has been a big part of me becoming a parent, I think. And then get yourself some short games, 20-minute games that you can play either by yourself or two player. I've gotten quite a bit of them so far, and then accept that for a period of time you're going to be playing shorter games, and that coming from a guy who really love my heavy games, figured figured shorter games means less good games. Not necessarily the case. There are plenty of good games that take 20, 30, 40 minutes to play, and then go
So
hunting for some two-player games.
yeah, two players, dual games. So I think so. I'm listening to this, so I'm going to codify this list. Here's your top five, right? Here's going to break it down. Number one is planning. Number two is scheduling. Schedule, carve out a little time. Number three is flexibility, right? Like you said, know that things are going to change. Number four is just enjoy it, enjoy the collection, enjoy the experience when a game hits the table. One's a little bit more complicated, but what I call manage your collection and recognize that you're going to be playing, purchasing, collecting shorter games. I mean,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
the hope is eventually they get old enough they play with you at the table, right?
Yeah, I really hope so. I think if my daughter doesn't play board games, it's gonna be hard.
I'm going to get a call at
I'll
like
accept
3 o'clock
them.
in the morning, and Bo is going to be crying. He's like,
I can't play my games anymore. She
and I'd
only
be
wants
like,
to play football.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I have to stand outside in the rain. PJ, help me.
no. At which point I'd be like,
And the cardboard's getting wet. I don't know.
oh my goodness. I love it. So looking ahead, what what role do you hope that gaming is going to play in your family's life? Like, um,
I
how's
would
it,
re-
putting all the joking aside? Yeah.
I would really, really love it if we became a board gaming family. I don't know if I mentioned this the last time, but this town that I live in has really, especially for its size, a big board gaming community. And I have one of the guys in the community is play a lot of games with his, especially with his son. And I would love it if my family was a board gaming family, because there are so many. I've had so many wonderful experiences through board games and by playing board games. Not just the playing of games, but also the the whole community that you're a big part of as well, coming with it. So I would love it if I could pass that on to my daughter, my children, that there's a there's this wonderful thing that we can do together that's not focused, and not to get into that discussion, but that's not focused around screens or phones, and that we can just be present together, because I also think it's a lovely way to spend some time with people you love. And I would like to show a new
Yeah.
generation that perspective. I have a couple of nieces who are 6 and 7 and 10, and they've just started to pick up sort of the lighter games, the Cascadia Juniors and whatnot. But I just love the feeling of just sitting and playing with them as well. So to have that with my own family, I would really love it.
How
Yeah.
much of a fear do you and your wife have about screen time for your daughter? Obviously, she's too young right now, but like, is that something in the back of your mind? Is that, and maybe fear is not the right word? I don't know.
I
How
get
much
I
of a
get your
how
point.
much of a how much of a concern is it for y'all?
Yeah. We talk about it because she is old enough to sort of watch some of the most basic children's TV shows. There's this bonkers Norwegian show about a purple elephant that walks around and sings songs, and she loves it because the colors and the
Sure.
sounds, and yeah. But we talk a lot about the whole. I think we have the advantage of being parents at this stage, this point in time, because my generation, we grew up with a phone glued to our hands, and there's much more. At least there is in Denmark a bigger attention to children and to screen time, so and screen time in general, also with adults. I think we're trying to be very conscious about what we do and when we use screens. So it's okay to have had a long day, even when you're 14 months old, and just need to relax by watching a purple elephant sing songs. But it also needs to stop at some point, because we all know the feeling. I'm just gonna sit down with my phone for 10 minutes, and then whoops, that's 2 hours gone.
Yeah.
And I have an attention to not just having it be this mindless. I'm gonna put you in front of the TV, and then you're gonna stay there for an hour and a half. But it's okay if you need to relax for 20 minutes. That's fine. But it is a concern, and it is something that we need to be very, very conscious of. I know some of my friends who have older children. It's it's a real concern, and a real talking point in the schools. Several of our sort of public schools have banned phones from the classroom, actually,
Wow.
in an attempt to get children off the screens. So it is, and that's my point, that it's something that we talk about as a society, and I think that's going to come to our advantage.
Right. There's some conversations that I've had with coworkers. They've talked a lot about screen time in the classroom, right? There's the big debate. I don't know if this is, if, the schools in Denmark experience this or have this debate or not, about replacing dry erase or whiteboards in the classroom with smart boards that are digital. which is essentially a giant screen that you can put information on for the kids. Um, and, there's a huge debate. And I have to say, I can see both sides of the argument, but I think there've been a lot of studies done recently that talk about the more senses that you can utilize, right, and engage with in the classroom, the better children learn, right? So like even going back to a chalkboard, right? By writing on the chalkboard, there's the sound, right? There's that unique sound that some of us remember, that chalk on the board, and then there's the smell of the chalk in the air, right? So it's attacking those senses. And then there's the visual, of course. And then you're writing notes. So there's that tactile as well. Whereas the screen kind of takes away a lot of, at least that's the kind of conversations that are going on.
Yeah. Actually, I think over the past 5 years, 5 years ago, I think it was maybe a bit more, but pretty recently, some of our schools started handing out iPads to children when they started going to school.
Oh,
And because the argument was it's a more efficient way of doing notes.
sure.
You can put up homework and stuff. They've actually started going back to physical books again because
Oh,
there were studies about some sort of attention span, and
yeah.
that these iPads were used for something or other than schoolwork during the school hours as well. So I think that's the whole screen time and the whole screen thing is a big debate these days, and I think we're going to profit off that when Cena is old enough to go
Let's
to
hope
school.
so, right?
Yeah,
You had brought up Luke was on a few weeks ago, the board game therapist, for those of you who were paying attention. But since that episode came out, there's been a lot of chatter I saw in reaction to and response to that episode. I'd see people post messages and Luke would respond, and there's back and forth. There's another a mental health professional near his home in that area, and they're considering or they're already executing board games as part of therapy and mental health tools and therapeutic play and things of that nature. Luke's going to listen to this and he'll be like, that's not what it's called, it's this. He'll correct me, but yeah, I love that we're seeing board games being, it has value outside of just play, but play is also valuable,
yep.
not to
Play
down
is a value in
that.
itself. Yeah,
Exactly. But there's more than just that value, and that value can be executed in multiple ways. I mean, I know a lot of content creators in the US are teachers, and they use board games in their classroom. Mental health professionals are seeing the use of that, and yeah, that's great. Hopefully these trends make it easier to raise a child.
yeah. I would hope so, and I actually think one of the things that board games don't get enough credit for is the way that it teaches you to react to a situation that's outside of your control. Because there's so much more in some games than others, but randomness in games, it sort of forces you to think on your feet, which I think is a really important skill to have and to nurture. And just I just have some there's just a serenity about playing board games, for me at least.
Absolutely.
You asked me last time what I think I talked about Halls of Hegrid. It felt like the game
Yeah.
of keeping plates spinning, how that is relaxing. But it is because it forces you to be present. And I can definitely see it being used as a mental health, for mental health. And I really loved your episode with Luke. I think he had some really, really good points about games and mental health in general.
That was that was a conversation I was just really looking forward to having, and I want to try to have more of those. Like this is where we talk about mental health, talk about being a new parent. There's so many other things that I want to talk about, topics that I think are important, and I'm not an expert. So trying to find those experts who are also gamers to come on and talk about them is a challenge in and of itself.
I would imagine that.
But I will not give up. I will persevere.
I hope you don't. I hope you don't.
You know, so yeah. Um, Well, thank you both. It's really good to see you. I'm
You
glad
too.
to I'm glad to be chatting with you again. I thank you so much for pitching this idea and reaching out to me. And
Thanks
this
for
is
being up for it. It was a
yeah,
lot of fun to talk about.
it's a great conversation. I appreciate it too. I mean, I may not be a parent, but I mean, I've got I've got nieces and nephews. We've got a 5-year-old nephew who's just starting to get interested in board games now. And so
He's in for a
that's,
treat.
oh, he is like, let's see, Ticket to Ride. He's got the My First Journey. He's got the my first Castle Panic, or whatever the children's version is, and the children's version of Splendor. And he's unbeatable. He's also played Mountain Goats by All Play. 5 years old, and he's like, yeah, a little bit of help, but he gets it. Yeah. So
I get destroyed in Patchwork by my oldest niece every time. I don't know how she does it, but I heard her saying to my mother actually recently, something along the lines of, my mom said, why aren't you taking that piece? And she said, no, I can't take that piece, because if I take that piece, it moves here, and you can take that piece. So she's already thinking two turns ahead. But actually,
hey, that's
there was
great.
another thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of children's versions of games. Everdell Scythe, my
Yep.
first Scythe.
Yep.
That's also a testament to more gamers being parents.
Yeah. I love that. So, well, Bo, thanks again. I really
Thanks so much
appreciate
for
it.
having me.
And guys, if you've got any questions about, you are a new parent and you're trying to carve out time for games, or if you're anticipating becoming a parent, or you're thinking about becoming a parent, or you've been a parent for 20 years and you got advice that you were like, I wish Bo would have said this,
Yeah.
then look, comments down below, Spotify, YouTube, Apple, all the things, let us know, share your advice, ask for questions. We love them. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it. As always, be kind to each other, and let's play more games.